Hello, everybody. You've tuned in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm Sergeant Rich Myers with the Indiana State Police Public Information Office, and we want to thank our continued sponsorship of the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, who put us on each and every week here for the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I have with me today First Sergeant Ty Utterback. Thank you, Ty, for being here.
Glad to be here.
And Ty is working. He's with the Indiana State Police Commercial Motor Vehicle Enforcement Division, or CMVD. Not enforcement, CMVD, correct?
Commercial Vehicle
Enforcement Division.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know we changed a little bit there every once in a while. So CVED, Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. And we're talking about something that's kind of on the hot spot right now.
It is. It's had me and the staff at our office just phones ringing off the hook. It's been kind of a buzz.
Okay. And that is a non-business private motor carrier of passengers. And explain what that is in layman's terms.
Well, it's a segment of the passenger transportation industry, I guess you would call it.
Okay.
That has to do with your nonprofit, non-business type of organizations, volunteer groups. It's going to primarily, and the majority of that group is most likely going to be your churches. But YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs. I've had a few American Legions or VFWs that somehow acquired an old decommissioned school bus and painted over the yellow and took off the stop arm, and hey, now we've got a vehicle that we can transport multiple people.
Right.
And what has kind of been an unknown, and really, and I'm going to have to be honest here with you. Our division, our officers who are certified in doing DOT compliance type checks and roadside inspections, this has just not been an area of the passenger transportation segment that we've been really active in doing enforcement projects or stopping roadside. Mm-hmm. For one, their frequency of use on the roadways is not as much as other vehicles.
Right.
They just, a lot of times they sit in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And
till Sunday or when they're going on a trip or whatever.
So we just, the opportunity for interaction with us and a knowledgeable officer to conduct a stop and say, hey, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? That just doesn't happen. So, and we have not done a lot as an agency to really, as we see them parked in a lot, just go knock on the door and say, hey, I see you had this large bus. What do you use it for? And so this is an area of the passenger transportation that's just been kind of, I don't want to use the word, just unaware,
right,
that they're supposed to be in compliance with certain things.
So what kind of brought this to the forefront, Ty?
Well, in the past 2 or 3 years, we've had just a handful of tragic crashes where somebody was killed in a traffic crash that happened to involve a church bus. There was a couple here in Indiana. There was one that happened down in Tennessee. And I'll tell you, during this process, I've actually have spoken with members of those organizations, those
right.
churches. They came to the seminars that I put on. They were invited, and they were very, very happy that we were doing something like this to spread the word and to bring other organizations up to compliance. One of them happened to be in full compliance. There was nothing wrong. They had DOT numbers. They had the proper driver. They had pretty much everything they were supposed to have. The other organization wasn't quite there. There was a lot of things that they didn't have. Mm-hmm. And I just spoke to that a member of that church just yesterday. And, he very well could have been disgruntled and said, hey, boy, it would have been nice if somebody would have told us this, 2 or 3 years ago before this bad crash happened.
Yeah.
And And I agreed, and I'm like, yeah, it's tough to learn in the middle of trying to sort out all the details during an investigation of a fatal crash. Do I have what I'm supposed to have? Do I have the credentials we're supposed to have? Are we just doing what we're supposed to do?
Right.
That's a bad time to learn.
Yeah.
And we as a division and as an agency, we've always kind of known that, and we've answered questions throughout the years, just here and there, a little bit of the time, just small numbers of churches and private organizations like this, non-for-profit groups. The phones rang, and we've given our little, hey, this is where you find the information, and this is what you've got to do, and but that just wasn't enough, and
it's just kind of been an area of unknown to a lot of people, including
for a
us,
lot of
and the groups and things. So, what do people need to do, or what do organizations need to do to become compliant, or where do they need to look?
Well, first of all, our state legislators kind of picked up on this, and so they passed a law a couple years ago that actually went into effect just this January 1st.
Okay.
And it just to be simple about its explanation is that it is going to basically require them to have one small part of their compliance that they need to be in compliance, things that they're supposed to be in compliant with, and that's a vehicle inspection. They're going to have that done before they renew their plates.
Now, who provides that? Where do they get that done at?
And that's one of the questions I've been getting hit with a lot. Well, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to seek out a vendor, a mechanic, a dealership, someplace that actually has inspectors or mechanics that do the DOT annual inspections, and that's the exact same inspection that they're going to have.
Okay.
And the B&B has a form that they want to be brought in, a certificate that they would like to have signed off by that mechanic. I will tell you that in addition to that requirement, they will also have to have the other form of documentation that they've already been required to carry. They just don't know it now. A lot of them don't. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have that mechanic basically fill out two forms. The one that the DOT compliant form that they'll have to carry in the vehicle, and then this one that the B&B has created that they're going to ask to have presented at the time of their registration renewal.
Now, this inspection, is that an annual inspection or just every time they get their plates, or how does that work?
It's an annual inspection.
Okay.
And it's actually, that's going to be in Part 396 of the federal regulations. And again, what the legislators have done with this law is now it's forced the issue, at least to where a lot of churches are like, okay, I got to have my vehicle inspected. Yes, you do. Well, not only that, but there's a lot of things here that you have not been doing. Mm-hmm. DOT numbers, CDL drivers, CDL drug and alcohol testing, all these things that come with operating a vehicle that meets this definition.
Is there a location that they can find these inspection sites, or does it have to be certified, or how do they go about picking the correct inspection?
There's no official certification process to certify a mechanic on being qualified to do these inspections. The guidelines for who's qualified are listed in the federal motor carrier safety regulations.
Okay.
And they're somewhat broad, but because this is something that's been required for years with all types of commercial motor vehicles, property carrying, passenger carrying, business, non-business, just about every city or town is going to have somebody that does what's referred to as the DOT inspection.
So if these people probably got a hold of a major trucking company, they could tell them where they get their inspections done.
Absolutely. It's interesting that so I sent out invitations on based on a list I was given by the Bureau of Motor Vehicles of those individuals who have registered a vehicle that very well could fall into this requirement, and invited them to a compliance seminar. And after the the second one that I gave. Actually, it was at the second seminar I went to. There were a handful of vendors that offer a couple things. One would be the DOT drug and alcohol testing and being a third-party administrator to administer that. And there was also a vendor there that can provide the annual inspection on the vehicles. And they just approached me before it started. Hey, is it okay if I'm here? Pass out some information, and totally kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I was going to have an audience of just, and he goes, well, just let me explain why I came here. It's like, you sent your letters out, and we had, I had 4 churches call me up that week and ask if I could do, and this guy was he was a trailer manufacturer up in Lafayette, Indiana, and or a dealer of some type. And so and they do DOT inspections all the time on various vehicles. And of course, he wasn't even aware that these vehicles fell under these regs. And he said, it's kind of a good thing, because we had one of the buses here, it hadn't even been seen by a mechanic in 10 years. Yeah. And
and that's the whole point of this, is to make sure that transportation vehicle is going to be safe for the passengers that they're transporting. So,
that's correct.
Well, we're listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm talking to First Sergeant Ty Utterback of the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division of the Indiana State Police, and we're talking about kind of something that's been on the front burner here for the Indiana State Police, and that's the non-business private motor carrier passengers, and some regulations that may not be new, but maybe you're not aware of on this people that are utilizing these type of buses. Are there any special training requirements that these people have to have, or this group or organization?
Yeah. Well, basically, to summarize, what they probably need to do is they first need to assess what vehicle they have. Okay. What's the vehicle, and if they actually fall under these regulations. Right. A lot of organizations either have an old school bus that they've purchased, or maybe a newer vehicle that holds a lot of passengers. The first thing they have to do is decide, or figure out, my vehicle, is it designed to transport 16 or more passengers? And if that's true, and you don't know the answer to whether you have a US DOT number for your organization or not, then that's where you need to start.
Okay. Apply
for your US DOT number, or at least go to our website, see about the information, maybe visit. We actually had a version of my seminar videotaped. It's about an hour long, and to go through that, there's a lot of parts and pieces to this compliance, and It's probably way more than we can actually discuss due to the time constraints of this show. And probably what I would also advise is hold off on using that vehicle any further until you can be assured that you've met this compliance. Making sure that you have a CDL driver with the proper endorsement. Make sure that you have your own DOT compliant drug and alcohol testing program for those CDL drivers. Make sure you have your vehicle inspected. Yeah. Make sure you're aware of the hours of service rules and how do they apply. And I will say that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has recognized that these are nonprofit, a lot of volunteers, and that's a lot of the questions I get is, hey, are you kidding me that, we don't make money. Right. This is not a profitable business. And it's like, well, no, that's understood. And, but Federal Motor Carrier and the Indiana State Police realize that, you've still chosen to operate a vehicle that potentially could hold 50 to 60 people,
So we gotta make sure that you're safe when you're at home.
Exactly. So they need to get started in some fashion.
Well, again, we're down to 30 seconds. I want to thank you, Ty, for coming in. I want to put out this website, www.in.gov. And then on the left-hand side is commercial motor vehicles. It's got all the information there that you can look at, see the video. And if you got any questions, call Ty at 317-615-7373 for the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division, and they can help you out.
Thanks,
Ty,
Rich.
Thanks for coming in. Again, you've been listening to the Road Show. We want to thank the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids. We'll catch you again next week on the Road Show. Road Show out.